What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Web Buzz Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Tiberio, joined by my sidekick, my man, the guy Jeff Bezos is about to go and recruit straight out from inside of Google. Mr. Roger Valdez, what's going on, brother?
What's up, man? What's up? As always, man, always excited for the interesting intros. I love them, though. Gets me going. By the time anybody that's listening is, hey, that gets my confidence up, right? It gets me going. All right, let's do this.
I figured since you're kind of like the secret weapon inside of TRC, but we joke that you're the secret weapon inside of Google. And I heard today that Jeff Bezos is stepping down from his CEO position. I was like, oh crap, I got to protect my partner. He's going to come after him and want him to build out his next thing. So, well, I'm glad you're going well. Glad to boost the ego a little bit, get you pumped and get you excited. If you guys are joining us live, do not hesitate. Throw a little hello down in the comments. Let us know you're here. We've got something fun to talk about today. Little no dead set plan as far as a topic, but I did happen to attend a event today. I know it's weird in this era of COVID. That's actually pretty good right there. In this era of 2020 and COVID, going to events has not been very easy. And I'm a person that I love to attend events, and I happen to have the opportunity to attend one today for a particular product and service and element that we are part of here at TRC. And I got some really interesting stats and facts and just some things, some big picture elements out of it. Roger and I were chatting a little bit ago, and I was like, man, these are actually some pretty good things to break down and talk about today here on the podcast. But before I dive into it, before we get going too deep into it, is there anything you want to kind of hit on or share or talk about briefly, Roger, before we get into some numbers on some things? We'll kind of kick it to you for a second.
Yeah, no worries. No, I after our conversation, behind the scenes here before we kicked off, I mean, I was kind of going through our list of things that we're going to be talking about here, and start thinking about our company, right? The steps that we're going. So one thing I want to preface before we kick off is we are the type of company that actually, we actually do what we teach, right? So a lot of the stuff that we're doing and we're introducing to everybody out there is basically stuff that we're testing, we're doing it within our company, and we're seeing success. In this case, for today's conversation, I mean, there's things that I'm already getting ideas, that we'll probably talk about after this podcast that we can implement ourselves, right? And then come back to the podcast in a future podcast and talk about kind of the results. But no, it's really exciting. I love the digital space just because it's an ever evolving space, which keeps it exciting, right? So with that, I'll kind of pass it back to you, Sean. Let's kind of dive into this. I think it's going to be a good conversation here.
Well, it's funny you say that the digital space is an ever evolving space, because it's actually, and I got a couple notes right here on my phone that I was taking earlier today on it. But you say digital's an ever evolving space. And something that struck me really hard today, HubSpot. Many of you guys out there know we are a HubSpot agency. We love HubSpot. We use HubSpot like crazy. I was actually on a HubSpot event earlier today, and I learned that HubSpot actually has a vision for where HubSpot's going. And it's really like a 2, 3, 4, 5 year vision. And when they said that, I was thinking it, and all of a sudden I looked down into the chat section. This was a virtual event, and I looked into the chat section, and people were like, how in the world can a technology company, a software company at that, have a vision for 5 years? That's like forever in a day in the digital space. And when I saw that, I initially wanted to agree. And then I started to really think, and this is something we focus and push hard with our clients on, is to have that vision of 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road is good, right? There's a lot of power in that. And yes, in the digital space, in the online world, 6 months from now is not even going to look like today, let alone 5 years from now. Who knows what that's going to, kind of look like. But a company that's so rooted in the vision and the goal and the direction 5 years out in this space has to be incredibly good at the mission today, the mission tomorrow, this month's focus, next month's focus, this quarter, next quarter, right? They've got to be incredibly dialed in to what needs to do and what do we need to focus on and what is the most important kind of task or element or piece of this puzzle to move forward, because they've got to stay so tuned in to the ever fast changing pace of this digital platform and digital space to achieve that 5-year vision, to keep the 5-year vision aligned with the change so that they can change along with it and still achieve what they were going after. And I know you've been in this space a lot longer as far as the nitty gritty and the technology side of it, and just seeing platforms evolve and change so fast, Roger. So maybe just talk on like how difficult, but yet how powerful is that if a company is that tuned in digitally with their digital marketing, with their plan, to be able to know that distance and today at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a word that gets turned around, or a phrase that gets thrown around, gets thrown around a lot in every industry or every situation, I guess, is knowledge is power, right? Knowledge is power. So what that translates into an entrepreneur space or a business, when you have data, and you're collecting it, sometimes it's just overwhelming. You have so much information, it's hard to make decisions off of it. So it's good to have softwares that pretty much kind of silo that information in different spaces so you can utilize them to your advantage. With that said, if you have that data, you can make data-driven decisions. Right now, 5 years. I mean, we're talking. 5 years is a long time. So I'm going to take it back one step, kind of a little bit, to think about not everybody's at this level, but 5 years for a company like HubSpot, right? And we're going to just hold with me, but 5 years for somebody like HubSpot, you got to think of people like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, visionaries, right? These guys are big. They have data that they can make decisions 5 years from now because they're already seeing what the future is going to look like, right? They can't predict, like, for example, this year with COVID and what happened, worldwide, how it affected everything. They could not predict that, but they can predict the type of the evolvement of where we're at with software, right? So as things happen in the world, they can expedite what's being created. Let's talk about that vaccine. They would have never created that vaccine that fast, right? They probably created new processes to expedite how they create vaccines. Well, guess what? That happens in almost every industry. In software, everybody jumped online. So these big players had to now start they probably have visionaries, right? On top, CEOs that just kind of are looking all the time. So a big takeaway is for you guys to look at yourselves within your industry and your business, and you got to put yourself in that seat if you're the CEO or an executive within that company, and be that visionary. Because if you're that visionary, you can go that far. It's not guessing, guys. It's not kind of like, hey, I have this vision that something's going to happen. It's the data. It's the data. And it goes back to, how are you collecting that data? And is that data, valuable? Obviously, if you're doing the right things, you're using the right softwares that exist right now, that data might help you make decisions on getting other types of software that will help your company advance. So what I've seen over the years, Sean, to answer that one question right there, I mean, let's just talk WordPress, something very simple, right? It's a platform that allows you to build websites. This was, early 2000s, something that just kicked off as just a platform to do a blog, a simple blog. That was the concept. Now is used worldwide to build, very, very advanced websites. We use it. We love it. But that's how that software evolved, based on the need, the demand, how it's being used, and how it evolved. So if you're that visionary, if you're that person in that business, you got to look at your tools. And if you don't have any tools, you don't know where to go, then you got to be watching podcasts like ours here, or other ones, right, that are related to your industry, that you can get information on what people in your industry are using, so you can jump in and then start making data-driven decisions on what else you should be adding to. So that way, if you're making, let's not talk 5 years, because that is for small to medium-sized companies, that's hard, right? Let's talk a year. Let's just keep it to 6 months to a year, right? Even smaller, quarter. That's what we do. right, Sean? It's like we stick with
Absolutely.
quarters. So I'll kick it back to you. Hopefully that kind of answered your question there.
No, I mean that is spot on. And you know, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Elon Musks, the Jeff Bezos, they're a dime a dozen. They're not a dime a dozen, I should say. They're very unique individuals, and that's why their companies are the way that they are. Now, that doesn't mean you as the small business owner can't have some level of that. And I think that's what Roger just nailed perfectly is start with just have a vision for the next month, the next quarter, right? Have an idea of like, what is it that I'm trying to achieve? Where do I want my business? What does it look like a month from now, 3 months from now, maybe even out to 6 months from now in time? You do this enough repetition around this. And that's what I took from what they were talking about is the only way HubSpot's able to be that far advanced is because they've been so good for so long at the now moment, right? Today, tomorrow, next week, next quarter, the rest of this year. They've done that so well for so long that they can start to build the bigger vision and almost guide the company right at and achieve that vision. Now, you brought something else up, and it actually fit one of the other kind of aha moments that I had today that I think really affects everybody as they're looking at digital marketing and just the digital space in their business, period. And this one kind of caught me a little off guard, partially because I wasn't expecting how few were thinking it. The majority of businesses starting in 2020 were only at a position where they were kind of claiming they were open to discussing digital elements in their business. They were open to the discussion. That's the part that shocked me. That it was like, oh, we're turning the leaf into a new era here. It's 2020. We're kind of getting out of the 20 teens, right? Things are changed. Okay, maybe I'll start paying a little more attention now to digital things in my business, digital marketing elements. By the end of 2020, it was the complete opposite. The majority of businesses that they surveyed said the only thing that we can focus on and the only thing that we want to focus on is digital. Now, I know, Roger, you and I were just chatting backstage before we went live, and you were like, yeah, some of it's forced. Absolutely. Some of it was, slapped on them, COVID, that kind of piece. But in your experience, why do you think more businesses today are starting to feel that pressure that it's almost a must now? Like, you've got to be all in on the digital side. There's no more toe in the water kind of mentality around it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually a great question, and one we have to have to answer almost on every client meeting, sales call, things like that, because there's a big misconception of a demographic, right? And it's like, for example, I have an older demographic. I don't need technology, right? They're not on technology. Guess what? They are. My mom is here visiting here, and she can't get off of YouTube.
I was just going to say,
keep looking up. Yeah, it's crazy, right? It's here. So the true reality is that the majority of people every year, maybe I'll change that, every quarter, just to make it a little more realistic, right? Every quarter, the number of people that are getting themselves educated and comfortable with not digital marketing, but online, right? Using social media, websites, is growing. Now, with what happened this year with COVID, that just expedited that process. Why? Because they were forced. I'm trying to renew like my passport right now, right? Because we're getting ready for an event, and I'm trying to go through that process. I'm forced to do that, online, when I could have gone to the post office or DMV or done some other things to renew certain things. So keep in mind, there's normal things that we're so used to just saying, no, I don't want to deal with the computer. I'm going to go down to the office and deal with it there, right? Whatever office that you need to go to, you can't do that anymore. So people that usually were like, no, I'm against cell phones, I'm against computers and all this, they are now forced to use technology to get their daily activities done. So that those demographics that we used to look at no longer exist. Now, just about any business now has to have some type of online presence so that you can be found and get put in front of the ideal client, right? So you can continue doing business. Now, I'm going to I'm sure somebody will come up with some kind of example where that is not the case? I'm sure there are, but the majority, right? We have to talk to the masses. The majority is you do. It's like there isn't no more breakdown of it's not needed. My demographic's not there.
I mean, the whole time you're saying that, I'm sitting here laughing because I'm literally sitting in my grandmother's computer room, and I'm sitting, like, her computer is right here. Now, folks, my grandmother is 85. All afternoon when I was sitting out in her living room hanging out with her, she has been on her phone, her cell phone, 85, right? Scrolling around on Facebook, scrolling around on other online things. Her and my father were in here earlier today dealing with some of the stuff, things that you have to deal with post-death, post-funeral. I lost my grandfather a couple of weeks ago. She's been, and my dad today, they were dealing with that. Where were they dealing with it? Right here on this computer, right? Sitting here. And again, he's in his 60s, she's in her 80s. And they are my father is definitely that person that you just said, like I just want to go to the office. I just want to go to that place. And some of it was being forced. Others of it was just, hey, go do it that way because it's easier. It's less headaches. It's in the single digits with wind chill and there's snow all over the ground. Don't take grandma out in that. Just go into the computer room and knock that out, right? So yeah, some of it's being forced, but other elements of it is even the business sides are realizing staff doesn't need to be as elaborate. Space doesn't need to be as elaborate, right? Even if they keep the big staff, but space, maybe they can work from home. They can be a little more virtual, these type of things. COVID did enhance it. It did put a spotlight on it, but it was definitely an eye opener to hear, HubSpot, who really works with everything from the small guys like us and our clients, all the way to companies like Zoom and Slack and some of these others. Well, not Slack anymore. They got bought up by Salesforce, but large enterprise level operations. For them to say, hey, the majority that we talked to, 2020, they were just open to the idea. By the end of 2020, just a few weeks ago, everybody was saying, no, that's like 2021. That's all we are going in on is digital. So as a small business owner, trying to grow, trying to get your business off the ground, maybe adjust, maybe rebound even off of what you had happen in 2020, focusing on the digital side. And we've got some great trainings out there. You guys can go back and watch some of the past podcasts on it. I know we've got some different resources out there. One of those being our masterclass. The link's right here on the screen. You guys can head over to topresultsconsulting.com/masterclass. Got a great training on how to make your website that go-to kind of sales marketing hub for your business to kind of get it going on that digital space for it. But definitely something to focus about. Now, a final one that I want to talk about, and I kind of saved this for last because I have a feeling we're going to spend a little bit of time going deep into this, especially if I decide to share some of the shining lights of some of our clients today. But you guys have heard Roger and I talk about that you've got to understand what the journey is for your prospect, right? We spent the last couple of episodes really talking about that customer profile and the customer journey, awareness, engagement, and into subscribe. If you missed it, we used the example of Roger's dating life. It fit perfectly. So go back and listen to those episodes. You'll know exactly how he met his wife to marrying her in a few short episodes. But it's one thing to know what you want to take them through, right? As the business owner, as the business, what's the process? What do I want them to kind of fall through with? It's another thing to really understand what's the journey they took. And this was a piece that I took out of today. It's something HubSpot does incredibly well. So much so that I almost felt like Big Brother was watching yesterday. One of our current clients was on HubSpot's pricing page. And I got a message from one of our team members at HubSpot saying, hey, by the way, so-and-so is actively on our pricing page right now. You might want to reach out to him. And it was hilarious because I was already talking to him about HubSpot and everything. But between that and some of the stuff they talked about today, it was like, holy crap, you really got to understand what the journey they took, not just what you want them to take. So before I go any deeper in that, thoughts, ideas, or anything that you want to share on that element?
Data is power, man. Knowledge is power. If you know what path they took, you can optimize those pages to be more attractive, right? So if we're always thinking our landing pages are the most important pages on our website, which it's common knowledge, right? You go off it, but then you look at the data, and the data gives a different path for a certain type of client. Maybe it's a certain lead magnet that you have on your website. You thought they were taking a certain path, and they're not. They're coming in a different way. Well, it gives you the opportunity to optimize that particular path. But yeah, that's what I got on that part.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring that up. I won't share the client's name or anything, just for confidentiality sake, and some of the names in their stuff. But I was actually working with one of our clients earlier today. Shortly after the event, I had a call with them. We were going over some stuff, kind of one of their coaching consulting calls for the 6-month challenge we're doing. And they mentioned something to me. They had taken some action on something you had taught in our client call a couple days ago, or a couple weeks ago now. This is when you went over the actual step-by-step. But over the last week or so, they've really been putting in the time to put in that action. And they've been taking the steps to do what you said, and all of a sudden the results started to show. They got inundated with form submissions off of their website, and they had no idea how this was happening. Now, a lot of it is the stuff that you taught them to do, which you told them to go and do. It's some of the stuff that we've talked about on some of the past podcast episodes. You guys can go back and listen to some of the earlier episodes in this to hear that. But as soon as they said that, and actually one of our clients just messaged in and said,
I'm reading the comments there.
Yeah, you can share, I see it. I'm still not going to do it, though. I'm not going to do it on it, but I did tell him I was probably going to use this as a case study. But that's hilarious that he's like, I'm Big Brother watching you too now. But they said this, and I was like, there's no way that they got flooded. So I jumped into their account, and lo and behold, they had like 17 submissions in the last 3 days. I lost it. I was like, there is no way that this happened. And I thought for sure, I was like, oh crap, we forgot to put a spam element to this or something, right? Nope. I went and randomly started clicking on names, and without drawing this out too much and telling too much of their business on it, one of the individuals that I clicked on, it was literally a recent one. I think our call was at 1 Eastern or right around that time. This person had been on their website at about 11:30 Eastern. They were only on their website for about 5 minutes. In that 5-minute window, they filled out 2 different forms and visited 14 different pages. Now, Roger just got done saying, when you know the page that they're going to and you see a trend and a pattern, because then I clicked on another name, and that same person was on 2 of those exact same pages. They filled out 2 of the exact same forms. They were on 9 different pages in a very small window of time. And that was just 2 of the 17 plus that had come in that I clicked on. So if we started to go through that and noticed a huge trend, what's the journey they're actually taking? What are the pages that they're on before they fill out the form? What are the things that they're clicking and viewing and watching and looking at? And if I see this pattern, now we know where we can go and optimize deeper. Now we know what we can leverage to draw traffic directly to. Maybe instead of sending traffic to this other page that we thought, like Roger said, the landing page of my lead magnet, instead of driving them there, maybe we need to drive them to whatever, a case study page or a certain property page or a certain service page or whatever it might be. But without that analytic, without that insight into what your customers actually doing. And it made me think, trying to run your business in a digital era, in a digital time, without being able to see what they're doing. I translated it to, it's like owning a retail store and you blindfolding yourself the second they walk in and trying to assist and help them. You have no idea what product they're looking at. You have no idea what area of the store they're hanging out in. You have no idea if they keep frequenting back and looking at something because they want to buy it, but they're not wanting to buy it, but they want to buy it, right? They're bouncing back. You're trying to assist your prospect in your store with a blindfold on. just a little aha that I had out of it. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. You just opened up a little bit of something everybody can relate to. Just on my end, my wife is a registered dietitian in the Navy. She deals with a lot of food science, right? A lot of that stuff. So one of the things I've learned from her is like she has a program that she started here on our commissary, which is the food store on base here. She started kind of like a healthy kind of a section in the food store there. And I was asking her a lot of questions. And what I didn't know is that the way a supermarket is set up is based on data on how people buy. I had no idea that I go and I grab stuff and how every aisle is set up. So when you look at that, it's basically look at your supermarket and look at your business or your website, and that's what it is. All the aisles, right? Those are all your pages. How are you taking them through that path? When you go in a certain way, and most supermarkets, if you really kind of pay attention, they're set up a certain way, and you're hitting certain items in the entrance, and you keep going down the path. So that was kind of for me a big aha moment, and I kind of always try to relate those type of examples to what I do. And I was like, oh my God, it's all based on data. If you have the information, you can definitely apply it, and it works because you know the answer. The answer is there.
That explains why my local Lowe's decided to rearrange the entire store, huh? Walked in one day and everything's in a completely different space.
Absolutely, man.
So, I mean, without getting too deep into, how to we're not going to get into a HubSpot tutorial here, but this was a big element. When I saw this is like solidified why I know you and I love HubSpot so much. It's just the level of detail and the knowledge and the information that we can gain, not just for ourselves, but even for our clients, to help our clients out and make very smart, data-driven decisions, like we just talked about at the beginning of this, to hone in today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next quarter kind of actions. But what would you say to that person that's sitting out there right now? They get it. 2020 shook them to the core a little bit. They're that business now that's saying, yes, I got to go all in on digital. I understand some of the stuff you guys have talked about on past episodes. But now I'm sitting here going, okay, if I do that, how important is this element right here? Do I need it today? Or is this like, okay, I wait a little while before I make a move to have this level of data coming in?
Sure. Loaded question, but I'll try to kind of once again apply it to the masses. That way we can kind of see how it fits in your business, right? So one of the things is it's gonna depend on your industry and what's happening. So number one, I would suggest in your particular industry, look at trends. What happened? Let's use the restaurant industry, because that was a big industry that got hit hard in the pandemic. And a lot of people are trying to recover and trying to find ways to do it, because that's an industry that slowly got allowed to do certain things. For example, they can't have people in their restaurants, but they can do, curbside pickup, right? Well, guess what? A lot of these small mom and pop restaurants, they wanted to do that, but they didn't have a website. Number two, they didn't have an online menu. Number three, they didn't have an online payment system. It's like, get what's going on. So what you have to do in your industry is kind of look at what happened, right? You got to go historical. I'm a big history buff. I love looking at history. And when it comes down to your business, go back, look at this entire year and how it evolved, how your industry evolved. What did your competition, what did your competition do? What's on their websites now? And how do you find the correct people to look at? Go to Google. Type in some keywords into Google and find out who pops up. Well, guess what? Those guys that are popping up are most likely your online competition, because there's differences, your offline competition and your online competition, right? We're focusing on online right now. So I would go and see who actually took action for their digital presence, which are going to be by you typing in those keywords. Look at those guys, see if they changed anything looks different. Be the client, right? Do that. Be the client and find those nuggets on their website they might have changed. Whether it's like the message that almost every website has about, we're still in business, COVID's here, but we're still in business, that. Whether it's that, whether it's a lead magnet, giving some kind of education about how to deal with the pandemic and the product or the service, right? Something like that. So I'll kind of leave it at that point. It's like, you got to really look at the trends. You got to see what your competition did, not just any competition, but your top competition, because those are the guys that most likely had agencies like Top Results guiding them through a process through here, because we're data-driven decisions, right? So we have to implement to keep these guys going. I like using the restaurant industry, even though I'll be completely open. We don't do a lot of restaurant type clients. Obviously, we're open to them, but that's where I saw a lot of questions. I studied it just to see how it affects our type of industries and clients that we do business with. But that was the big one that really hit home was, man, these guys can still make it if they get on the ball, get a website, get an online menu, and even an online payment process, right? That fit that industry very, very well. Coffee shops, things like that. I got calls from a number of coffee shops, actually. So I got an opportunity to go through all that. So yeah, just looking at the trends, seeing what's out there, and don't say that it doesn't fit your industry. You have to really look at the history. If it didn't fit at all, maybe you were one of those 1% of industries that just before this pandemic didn't make sense to be online. I can't even tell you an example because I don't know an example. But if you think you were, go back, do some Google searches, see what your competition is doing online, and I promise you'll find something. For the majority of you guys, you will be surprised of the changes, things that happen. What are people doing to stay alive? Because we are all entrepreneurs, right? At least a lot of our audience, and not everybody, but a lot of our audience are entrepreneurs trying to kind of figure it out. And we all got hit a little bit. Things changed. This was different. This was the uncomfort zone, right? We all got really uncomfortable for a minute, and we're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Because we didn't have the data on the pandemic of what's going to happen. But you know what? We had historical data of what's happening, what people need, and what we did, we adjusted. So another nugget that I can throw in is one thing that I learned a long time ago working through some startups, being very close, and that was a key to working with startups early on in my career, that I got to talk to, some executives and some CEOs just because they're right there, right? It's not a big team, but an agile mentality, right? Agile mentality, making sure that you have a plan, like a big company like HubSpot, right? A plan for the future, but making sure there's room to be agile, room for change, right? If you don't have that, you might find yourself in trouble if you're in a situation, if something like the pandemic with COVID this year happens, because now you're stuck and you had no way out. Your plan was straight. But if you have a little bit of flexibility, then you can adjust your plan according to what's happening around you, whether it's good or bad, right? Sometimes it's great and you're like, man, I can expand my plan here because I left it very agile, very open, right? Now, because there's new opportunities, I can adjust. And us in the, from the beginning of the year to this year, yeah, we had that moment where we're like, man, what's happening here? What can we do? We adjusted and we had a ton of opportunity. We were one of, I'm going to say not everybody had this, but for us, we were, I'm going to put it this way, because I don't like looking at it as, oh, business opportunity. It was an opportunity for Sean and I to help a lot of people. So we really got on the horse and we said, what can we do? To help our clients? Not only that, put information out there to help other entrepreneurs that are kind of struggling. Guess what? This podcast was one of those ideas. We do a Monday call, me and Sean are on a call every Monday with our clients, helping them through the process. So those are things that we kind of put out there from us, that we wanted to kind of give back and make sure that we're adding to the solution, right, of the big problem that was happening. So look at how you can be a solution as well. Look at your industry. See what you can do to improve your online presence. And one of the things that you can always do extra is be a solution. What kind of solution can you add to that particular industry through an online presence?
I think you nailed it on the head right there when you said having ability to be agile. And when I look back at 2020, we weren't one of those companies that was just open to it. We were deep into it in 2020. We knew digital was kind of what we were doing, hence the fact that we're launching a digital agency at that time. But I think our vision at that time, when all that hit, and our ability to be agile and look at it and say, all right, what do we need to do right now to survive the next month? until we can get some clarity, until we can bring some of that data back in again and see how is this going to not just affect us, but affect our clients, and how can we do our best to bring our clients through that. And then we looked at it and said, all right, what do we need to adjust? What do we need to do different? What additional things do we need to bring online to help new clients, to help those that are searching for the help that we know we can bring them? And I think that ability, you nailed that right on the head when you said being flexible, but being very tuned into the vision and the mission, the overall, right? Where are we going? What are we trying to achieve on it? So hopefully you guys got some stuff out of today. I don't know if there's anything you want to kind of summarize or wrap up with, Roger, anything you want to leave them with before we call it a night?
The only other thing that I have is really get out there, guys. One thing that we have an opportunity now. There's a lot of industries, right? Actually, almost every industry lost businesses in the competition kind of list, right? So I don't want to say that it kind of evened out the playing ground, but you lost some competition. So if you're still struggling, you're in there, but you're going to be, hold in there and fight through this. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for everybody that holds and stays strong. So just stay strong, get out there, surround yourself with good people that are going to support you, support your vision, surround your business with good employees. My goodness, me and Sean attest to that. Having a good team around you makes that much of a difference. So absolutely, get out there and do your thing. Don't give up. Keep going.
Absolutely. And again, if you guys are looking for a little bit more clarity and training, how do we really get a lot of these elements to really help our website? Go check out our masterclass, topresultsconsulting.com/masterclass, or just head over to the Top Results Consulting page. There's multiple different places for you to click on it and get to it. But 45, 50 minutes of just down and dirty. Here's the most important elements. Here's what you need to focus on to get the most out of your website from a marketing and sales tool. And it's getting close, right? We just talked at the very beginning of this, how much things change in such a short time in the digital space. It's almost time to start looking at maybe even refreshing and updating that video training over there, just to be sure we're bringing in the best training that we can. So with that being said, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day, evening, wherever you're at. You're over on Roger's side of the world. Welcome to a new day. You're over on my side of the world for once. This will be the last week that I'm coming to you guys from the East Coast, back to LA by next Wednesday, back in the studio, back to the regular routine. I'm getting pretty excited for that. It's been great being around family. I didn't like the reason I came here. It's been nice to be around them, but it's time to get back, get into some things. So we'll see you guys next Wednesday. Join us live again if you're around. If not, catch it on a replay. Catch it over on our YouTube channel when it gets uploaded on Mondays. Show up with some questions. We'll help you out. Message us in the meantime. You got ideas, topics you want us to talk about? Send us a chat over at Top Results Consulting or to Roger and I directly. And until next time, as I say every week, here's to your success.